What if the most advanced civilizations in the cosmos once watched in horror as their own creations led to catastrophe? Delve into the gripping story of Professor Hernandez, who stumbles upon ancient secrets tied to an antimatter weapon that echoes the downfall of lost worlds like Maldek and Atlantis. As he interacts with Leah, a mysterious being from beyond the stars, he becomes entangled in a web of cosmic truths and warnings about humanity's reckless ambition. This captivating journey invites you to explore the intersection of science, spirituality, and the pivotal choices that could reshape our destiny among the stars. Absorbed in my thoughts, I had not realized that all around me had come to a stop. Escaping from my reality is when I can remember what Leah had told me days before. I shiver not only to remember, but to simply pronounce her name, to know that she, at some point in this vast universe, has found the answer for her presence in this world. I looked toward the window and I noticed that it had become dark outside. It was already late. At this point in the infinite in which I had touched life, clouds had gathered and were forming immense cumulus masses that undulated violently, sketching fantastic configurations in the blue sky. I watched it rain and was moved by the fury with which the drops of water lashed the window. Leah had given me an incalculable inheritance. She had taught me to love my world with all, and what I encountered today revolted me. But there was something very important about this. I had changed too, not only at the emotional level, but at a psychic level as well. Where was it that I got this? I had considered the conversations that I had obtained with Leah and the slow but inexorable change in me a great deal, which at times I did not myself comprehend. My conduct had chance sensitizing me to a high degree, but this I did not ask for, nor did I solicit any change. No, this did not come in any rapid manner. It was slow, like sparks of metamorphosis. These changes at first were spaced out until each time they came more frequently. My mind had expanded, and my power of concentration had become sharpened. I could perceive any sound in great detail, and surprisingly could repeat such any time I desired, and analyze it completely, including its musical derivations, if it had any. All for me now had no beginning nor end, nor rise nor decline. It is as if each point in my imagination suffers thousands and thousands of changes. My thoughts separate into interesting concepts. All that occurs to me is subjected to profound analysis by me. I am sure that because of my encounters with Leah, all in my life has suffered a transformation. My mind has been modified. It is as if I am living within a cortex where all has great reason for being. For example, if I think on the word mind, this same thought stimulates my imagination, and my capacity to discern comes to me immediately. Then I see a brain, thousands of concepts recorded in it, and a movement induced through the same thought, like energy and vortex, which generates these stimulus. The same word suffers a distortion far beyond my knowledge of it, far beyond the explanation for this word found in a dictionary. I had asked myself many times, if in this manner the human being could utilize a greater percentage of his capacity for concentration and learning, surpassing the normal levels in any individual. This situation or mental state is that which I had opted to call power of infinite concentration, for lack of any other concept, and moreover, still from previous knowledge concerning this phenomenon, had brought really an indescribable change to my life. For example, if I perceived a determined aroma, let us say of a flower, to my mind would come innumerable ideas of landscapes where such a flower could have originated. I would think of its origins, from the unicellular beginning of the seed to the single representation of color and previously registered in its respective seed. I would immediately know its possibilities of duration, then perceive a succession of ideas about how to plant and grow them, in what parts of the world, resistance to climate, its industrialization, medicinal as well as for food, its possibilities for grafting and for sprouting. Finally, its formula and then its preservation. All this without reading about it in any other place. Leah had explained to me how only one page could contain hundreds of formulas according to their own characteristics. Well then, it is as if I myself have been converted into a computerized being to an undefined level. Now let us apply this to my personal life. For example, when I see a man, whatever his ancestry might be, I perceive various characteristics, his extraordinary ones, levels of vibrational frequency, his origins, his blood chemistry composition, and other questions. On the other hand, there comes to my mind the origin of the DNA and the gene from which he descended, and I can know if he descended then from a mixed or a pure race. How many generations have passed before him to his present state, from that obtaining his hereditary character, and from when as well as his physical characteristics? If I meet a man of the Negro or Japanese, we consider both of those pure races. Upon taking his hand, I can perceive his vibratory waves more or less acutely, depending on the biological chemical combinations of his genetic makeup and other traits, which for questions of reproduction have been modified. I can compare him with others which have been mixed and with various races that emit various frequencies. These two races have a characteristic. Odor and their glands are different from those of the white or copper races. I can perceive his spiritual state by means of his stimulus and know then his tendencies and the nature of his thoughts. Leah told me one time, "You will someday understand my form of being and of thought, because you yourself will experience something much like what occurs with me, and that what for me is normal for you is incomprehensible. For that, when I experience all the situations that I have narrated, you will come to the conclusion that on the planet of Leah such phenomena could also occur, and that it is very possible that she possesses characteristics perhaps more sharp and elevated than that which I experience." One time Leah had said to me, "If you could listen, you would be delighted with the beautiful sound of your universe, I itself." Little by little, I began to understand the quality of her development to that level of mental perception. And me it seemed a formidable portent. It convinced me one more time that the human race, a valuable representative element of his existence, had lost this marvelous ability in some lamentable form. For me to experience this was to reach the stars with my hands. But what could I do with this in a world like ours? Could I do something when I perceived that some human being suffered intensely with his health? Could I avoid a continental level of confrontation? No. Then I remembered that as a human being, I could be, through this sensitivity recently acquired, an easily vulnerable being. 18th Early Visits to Earth. Leah said to me, "As you know, the atmospheric perturbations that frequently are registered on your planet come from space. It is there where the innumerable climactic changes are born. Nevertheless, those are the result of major phenomena, some natural, others artificial." She paused a moment and then continued, "Space offers an infinite accumulation of surprises. When we came here for the first time, you were registering on your calendar the year 1249, and the planet absolutely was very different from what you find today. We crew members of the ship exhibited our surprise at the simplicity of the people, utilizing rudimentary weapons when we already possessed the technology that would have evoked great surprise among those inhabitants of each one of the societies that we encountered at that time in conflict. In the manner that you arrived before?" I asked without believing that she had heard me. "Yes, but my charge was not the same as it is now. Then we simply studied, and my first trip was only exploratory. And now your trip is likewise to explore?" "Not necessarily, but you will know later why. Now let me continue explaining the atmospheric changes with relationship to the forms of life existing between the years 1200s and 1350. During this lapse of time, we made various trips, at least one each 20 years. We discovered that the climactic changes curiously influence the comportment of the Earth people. Your planet, Professor, belongs to those inhabited ones of the group that you call the Milky Way, and it is an extremely fickle body. There is a great diversity of climate around this tiny world. This is because of modifications in your solar system. Well, as a result of those changes being analyzed, we discovered some surprises in space. Cosmic clouds, or intermittently radioactive clouds, as we call them, were encountered with unusual frequency. They almost drove us away step by step. They are not detectable by the human eye. Our sensors locate then, and we evade contact. We have special sensors for our space navigation. For us, these clouds, because of the ability to detect and avoid them, are not dangerous, and thus represent no threat. With the objective of protecting ourselves, we open a compartment door and expel a neutralizing gas whose principal component is highly concentrated oxygen. Nevertheless, for you it is offensive. It would damage your world. It would provoke change in radio waves, turbulence in the air and in your electricity, and would generate problems by the alteration of the energy wavelengths. But the most important damage would be to your neurons. 19-hour explosive atmosphere. Where do these clouds come from? Asked. Their origins, she answered, are diverse. These clouds also have Varm's chemical components, gaseous, and many times such components are not the same due to the effect of fusion between one gas and another. The least percentage of them is inoffensive, but a greater part is highly dangerous. Our explosive atmosphere. Where do these clouds come from? I asked. Their origins, she answered, are diverse. These clouds also have various chemical components, gaseous, and many times such components are not the same due to the effect of fusion between one gas and another. The least percentage of them is inoffensive, but a greater part is highly dangerous. You, your scientists, have chosen a bad time for your nuclear tests, because the liberated energy of the atom attracts these clouds like a magnet, actually surrounding the Earth and adhering to the stratosphere. Sometimes they orbit, forming transparent rings around the Earth. In the years 1220 to 1300s, those clouds, not finding any point of support in the stratosphere, were repelled by the enormous mantle of oxygen encountered on your planet. In that manner, a large part of the gases was repelled. With the passage of time, the damage, though detectable, left minimum residual effects. We found cosmic clouds far beyond the system expelled in a certain way by spatial inertia, but today the characteristics of the chemical and nuclear weapons is such that it will be difficult, I must tell you, to disperse them from the environs of the Earth. I must tell you something else. Some substances that make up these gases are highly explosive. The space satellites could contribute something to this, but really the majority only detect some anomalies, and many times these are not appropriately interpreted by your scientists for lack of a point of comparison. This phenomenon is unknown to your scientists, and those gases, highly dangerous and, as I told you, explosive, could make your Earth vanish if anyone would expel a gas that would stimulate the cosmic clouds. The slightest cover contains heavy particles whose special components are nitrogen, hydrogen, and oxygen, among others, as well as lead emitted by the contamination from state countries. This is beginning to cover your planet like a cupola. The unmoderated mixture will deprive the neutralizing elements such as oxygen of beneficial effect. Other clouds come from other places. Some only are converted into light gases as they travel through space, but others come to form veritable communities of clouds of such form that visibility is not possible through many kilometers of space. In the system from where I come, there is a band of what you would call photons. Also, there is one in the Pleiades, and it is from there that we have ties of scientific interchange with them. We denominate this phenomenon as one of transformation. This is because an organism, when it makes contact with the photon, human beings, animals, and plants, suffers profound transformations. There is immediate organic disintegration. Well then, like with the cells, those atoms propagate, and when the nebulosity becomes overcharged, it explodes and expels these clouds throughout the universe. They travel slowly, considering that there are no gases to transport these nebulas, and as they are very heavy, their movement is slow. They do not come very far, but in space they reach enormous distances. Some of these clouds have come in various ages to the Earth. The photon was known in rudimentary form, without calculations of propagation and distance, and absolutely lacking of precautions, because in these different epochs in which these clouds of gases were present, the terrestrials were not prepared. Nor are you prepared today, despite your advances in technology, because you don't take much time to look up with the proper knowledge. You fill your space with useless debris without thinking of the dangers that also will come from the outside. But what does that mean? How must we study? You know that the terrestrian always has needed a comparative point and determine the nature of some object or thing in question. Frequently, they detect chemical components through metaphysical calculations, biology, physics, etc. The origin of all this is precisely in the contrary of the movement of the molecules and its development. The gas alone is the effect. The antimatter. Antimatter? The professor asked. You could give it that name for an approximation, but is not exactly antimatter, Leah said, because to exist as such antimatter would have to possess a force equal to the matter, but in a negative manner of form, which would have neither positive pole nor negative pole, only one culminating point of absorption of whatever of that which the major chemical components possess, and thus determines its force. But that which you call antimatter must be that which absorbs the matter, isn't that it? According to some theories of your world, you could think that, taking into account that in space all is surprising, the matter would cease to absorb the antimatter precisely with the intelligence that there exists more bodies, but that is not the case. The non-existence of parity in space is matched in the universe. The nothing, as I told you, is greater than the all, as you know. Now then, that is another concept that still is not known on Earth. Confused, Seven asked, how does one explain this? In a simple manner. In space, not only is there the all and the nothing, the matter and the antimatter, but the field of energy that between those two concepts. In your path, matter can transform all kinds of life, including destroy it. Antimatter would succeed in imposing itself even against all the living elements, but this neutral energy always overcomes to impose itself even against the antimatter elements. In space, all seems to move in the same vibratory rhythm. Though the enormous pulsars vibrate in a different manner than the satellites, all having their own movement. Because of this, when the band of photons came dangerously close to our system millenniums ago, our ancestors did not know how to avoid its noxious effects, and some worlds surrounded by it perished, and with them the capacity for life. Inhabited worlds were completely desolated after the passage of the photons. That energy eliminated all vestiges of life. For that reason, some civilizations were rescued and reimplanted on other inhabitable worlds. But before this, for the lack of knowledge, our ancestors asked many times what had happened. It was as if suddenly a planet with inhabitants was converted into an absolutely hybrid planet. The band of photons is one of the greatest threats that exists in the universe, though this is not as dangerous as other clouds in other galaxies. This only absorbs energy from living cells. Does that seem little? I asked in surprise. It is that there exist other classes of antigens. Some completely absorb the systems with stars and planets, though it is a characteristic process, because later it vomits them, and they come to take their original form, though the orbit can change. But other planetary bodies dissolve in the collision with that which you call antimatter. Other types of energy feed on the gases which they encounter sporadically in space, and others of light, though their nature may be cold and dark. But what are they? I asked, without understanding. They are antigens, whose transparency is such that they seem inoffensive. It is an invisible force like with energy. You can feel it, but you cannot see it. That characteristic is essential to that force, and unfortunately many systems, including your solar, are headed toward a band of photons. Of course, it will take many years to get there, perhaps decades of years. But now is a good time to prepare yourselves so that your sciences advance to benefit and not prejudice you. To construct a protection for the beings who inhabit the earth. The earth is a colony rich in genes of diverse forms. The multitude of races shows that it is an exceptional colony for reimplantation. There still are civilizations more or less pure. The threat does not only hang over your planet, but all your solar system is exposed. I have told you before that in space it seems like the bodies move in harmony, but it is not exactly thus. Some move slowly and others complete their orbits more rapidly. Above all, those bodies whose mineral characteristics make them slighter, not in weight but in conductivity, react differently with each other. It is as if the travel of a planet is facilitated more when it has more of this so-called electrical energy. That is an example only to illustrate what I am trying to say. Well, some travel several times their own system or galaxy. Your planet, in doing this, has already entered the influence of those photons on many occasions. It has not penetrated them directly, but the influence was felt from millions of your kilometers of distance away. Nevertheless, around your year 2024 or 25, you will feel this influence ever more strongly. But your scientists will think that it is a new kind of energy coming from space. The photon threatens from the gigantic depths of the universe. This and the magnetic band that surrounds your planet presents the greater danger for the future of your humanity. In earlier times, at least 14,000 years ago, your planet passed through the girdle of photons. The disasters did not leave much hope, though many of the reptiles did not suffer as greatly as before, because the influence was light. And even so, the elements were released. The Earth lost its orbital coordination. But then the Earth did not have the great number of human beings that it has now. What was it that happened? Well, I must tell you that many things occurred. You still had not entered the photonic band, and already the oceans were agitated by great turbulences, and the terrestrial plates were moving. The animals suffered gigantically from molecular stimulation, and this was scarcely the beginning. The scientists from other worlds knew the approximate nature of this phenomenon, and their technology brought them to construct great subterranean caverns and structures, which at a determined time would be able to repel this type of aggressive energy. One advanced civilization had come in anticipation of the problem, and they constructed an enormous cupola on the bottom of the ocean. As you know, hydrogen and oxygen repel all kinds of radioactivity, and they knew this. But the cupola did not have sufficient capacity for all the inhabitants, even though there were not too many then. They made the selection and took down these who now, notwithstanding the conditions, were in agreement, and believed as well that at least 10 years in the depths of the sea would be needed to survive and continue without suffering the damage possible as a result of the influence of the antigens. The least tiny error could provoke unforeseen damages. Incredibly, many people remained on the surface facing the dangers. Others were able to descend, and many more entered the deepest of the great caves than had been excavated in the earth. Many disappeared completely. The scientists of my planet, my father among them, were desperate because they saw the earth so threatened and did not know how to explain the threat to the terrestrials involved. The scientists of my planet came to the earth to help. Some descended to examine the cupola. They examined and selected some animals. Due to the fact that the cupola could suffer from overpopulation, the majority of the mammals were subjected to a prolonged glandular alteration. This treatment of the glands is completely inoffensive with our procedures because they can be restimulated when proliferation of the species is desired. If the scientists of your world knew this, they would not utilize so many chemical compounds to avoid uncontrolled conception. Why didn't they construct the cupola on the surface? Photon band should contain particles that consume oxygen. Your humanity would not have much advantage, and lacking this vital element could be extinguished as a humanity. This would not be the case in the depths of the sea, because oxygen could be extracted from the waters. Professor Hernandez began to feel despondent over all these previously unknown to him threats and the precariousness of human life on Earth. He worried a good deal about the fate of Earth humanity and wondered how other planets successfully survived such things in their natural evolution. It was about this time also that Leah told him of even worse menaces, threats to his very survival, created by terrestrial man himself, such as we are doing in a number of ways today with our atomic, chemical, and biological weapons of such efficiency that they can wipe out all living things on this planet at the pleasure of the aberrant humanity that lives here. Leah told him of a terrible weapon created here on Earth in the past by men living here that still could wipe out all living things and even the Earth itself, an antimatter weapon. Many civilizations have come to our planet in different epochs in search of more powerful weapons. Leah explained to me that beings from planets of higher knowledge intend to save them by taking them out of reach of terrestrial man, who day by day becomes more belligerent and aggressive. This information was given to me today, though I assured her, Leah, that it would be dangerous to give it publicity. Why tell it? The nations will annihilate each other for the possession of such a weapon. But before entering into personal reflections, I will tell you now, it was that Leah brought to my knowledge what I have called the diabolic weapon. Today I am speaking of a most powerful weapon whose longevity has extended back over the centuries. An ominous aggressive force has been guarding in the marine depths this weapon, since our world has been studied for a long time by beings of other planets, with the intent to evade knowledgeable examination of their confirmation. It was here that she told me, according to my memory, 6 million years before your own time, the continents were found to form only one territory, and the nations were relatively close to one another. But then one night the sea swallowed an entire city, which you call Atlantis. The race who lived in the center of this great continent were drowned when the land split in two. They had come to be highly knowledgeable, but their ambition to know ever more and more brought them to total ruin. There, in that large city, the great Atlantean scientists struggled to reach martial supremacy. They wanted to control the galaxy without having the mental capacity to achieve it. The intended result was to obtain absolute dominion over your world and of the whole system. Those, the Atlanteans, had come from the third planet of this solar system, which then was Maldek, today known as the asteroids. This third planet was a refuge for beings coming from Sion, whose powerful sciences had made them invincible. Nevertheless, those scientists were divided by frictions among themselves, and some, also scientists, emigrated to Earth. The Earth then occupied the fourth place in this solar system. As colonists of the Earth, they became undesirable and intolerable to the inhabitants who had been established before. To perversity in the domination they exercised through their sophisticated arms and weapons with which they subjugated the smaller nations, the Earth came to be an enormous receptor of beings coming from other worlds, of which the diversity of creeds and customs as well as the genetic differences win great. The recently populated plain attracted many civilizations due to the richness in minerals it contained. At that time, there was only one continent. Your planet was something like a great greenhouse observed with great suspicion from the moose planet Maldek. Once on the Earth, those emigrant scientists explored the origin of man utilizing animals in danger of extinction, causing temple and monstrous mutations between human and animal genes. They captured animals of other worlds for experimentation in fields not only of genetics, but of clones, and the monsters they produced in the laboratory were released more than once in circuses of diversion coming from other worlds, of which the diversity of creeds and customs, as well as the genetic differences, was great. The recently populated planet attracted many civilizations due to the richness in minerals it contained. At that time, there was only one continent. Your planet was something like a great greenhouse observed with great suspicion from the enormous planet Maldek. Once on the Earth, those emigrant scientists explored the origin of man utilizing animals in danger of extinction, causing terrible and monstrous mutations between human and animal genes. They captured animals of other worlds for experimentation in fields not only of genetics, but of clones, and the monsters they produced in the laboratory were released more than once in circuses of diversion, confronting them with slaves and prisoners. Their experiments encompassed great fields of study, even coming to include tests of human resistance to poisonous gases which provoked genetic imitations in the descendants of those humans, causing thus themselves uncontrollable epidemics which isolated entire nations. Is it possible that the European tabloid press had a clue when they said that the AIDS epidemic was the result of American biological warfare experiments that got out of control? The Maldekians became very worried, but the terrestrials were not interested in applying restrictions imposed in accordance with cosmic agreements, and they rebelled against the laws of Maldek, where the respect for life was the first mandate to be considered. There were great astronomers who, knowing the exact movement of each one of the bodies in your solar system, upon perfecting the antimatter weapon, discovered a way to modify the orbits of each one of them. The stars radiate energy in sufficient quantity to power ships at a great distance. Nevertheless, despite what they had achieved, the terrestrial Atlanteans were not satisfied with their accomplishments and wanted to reach greater power on the planet Earth than that which had been achieved by the scientists of Maldek. They had at their disposition many forms of acquiring dominion over science, but they did not know enough about something that disturbed then antimatter. Remember, Professor, that antimatter surrounds matter, that there is more empty space in the galaxies than planets which it surrounds, after which then the nothing is much greater than that which itself exists. Moreover, the dead are attracted enormously by it. It is frequently asked in the same way that you ask today, where do the dead go? Over the years of profound study and experimentation on anxiously trying to control the power of the magnetic vortex that produces life, they succeeded in discovering the anti-magnetic origin of the same existence. They suspected that a powerful energy produced life, but they ignored the significance that it was that which sustained the nothing in the galaxy. They wanted to dominate the psyche in the human being, and the biological energy that moves man, as well as the dynamics that sustained the movement of the planets, the suns, and the stars. They were ambitious to obtain the immense power to dominate and subject the universe itself. Then it was when they came to perfect a weapon authorized only to the great civilizations, a weapon that converted living bodies into antimatter space. This weapon annihilated all and absolutely all of a living being. You know that matter dies, but the energetic essence, bioenergetic psyche survives. It is a powerful mental energy that retains a great quantity of vitality and whose memory persists through the centuries. This is the energy that moves you and me and all others. The planets which possess life possess memory. Well, those lesser Atlanteans, the terrestrians, so to speak, of the time, upon creating this powerful weapon, were able with it to annihilate also the energy that moves us, the same that you call spirit. But let us return to Maldek. Intergalactic law prohibited weapons such as this to civilizations or scientists such as those that demonstrated imprudence and insensible rebellion. The law of mutual respect was lost among the diversity of races and creeds that began to multiply on your world. Since the Earth and your solar system is on the edge of this galaxy, the terrestrials knew they were isolated from the greater civilizations that exist of the galaxy, and for such knew that they were secure from any inspection on the part of those civilizations, at least for a certain time. That weapon possessed an anti-nuclear reactor and anti-energy, and was as well a molecular disintegrator, magnetic destabilizer, force neutralizer, and receptor of energy of any class. With it, they could control life and movement. The new weapon was called an antimatter device, and it gave them a power never possessed before. The difference between the antimatter weapon and the conventional arms of that time was abysmal. The common arms then possessed could exterminate matter but not the organic energy. But the new and sensational discovery, as it seemed to them, permitted them to destroy the psychic and spiritual energy of the human being. This weapon could exterminate both entities, the material and the spiritual. Pardon, Leah. I do not understand what you say with both entities, I ask. Al, you give the name spirit and matter to those psychic and organic components of the human being. They both are in titles, what you call spirit and indestructible by conventional death. In energy continues even after death, but this weapon absolutely exterminated all of the vibrational or psychic being, whether it was in motion or not. And once it activated toward an objective, it would destroy it searching but the sound, being guided by the respiration of people in the area or by the expiration of the vegetation. It leveled entire cities and forests, being the only absorber of all its energy, and could disintegrate them. This weapon alarmed the rest of the Maldekians, who synced without solve for ways to resist it. Its powerful force exterminated all living cells, no matter how small they were. The forbidden energy, the air within the professor's study, was heavy with the aroma of aged parchment and fading candlelight. Leah, the enigmatic emissary from a distant world, stood near the window, her gaze distant as though piercing through the veil of time and space itself. The silvery glow of her aura contrasted sharply with the dim light of the earthly room, adding an unearthly beauty to her presence. Her voice, calm yet laden with ancient knowledge, wove the tale like threads of a cosmic tapestry. Over years of profound study and reckless experimentation, your ancestors sought to control the magnetic vortex, the very force that produces life. In their ambition, they unraveled its antithetical nature, the energy that sustains the nothing in the galaxy, but they misjudged its true power. The professor leaned forward in his chair, every muscle in his body tense. They suspected it was powerful, but to dominate life itself? His voice trembled with disbelief. Leah nodded solemnly. Not just life. They aimed to master the psyche, the biological energy that moves humanity, and even the cosmic forces that guide planets and stars. Their ambition grew boundless, and from that ambition they wrought devastation, the birth of a monstrous weapon. The wind outside howled as though nature itself mourned the tale Leah was recounting. Her expression grew darker, shadowed by the weight of the memories she carried. They perfected a weapon authorized only to the great civilizations. She began, her voice a measured cadence of grief and forewarning. A weapon that converted living bodies into antimatter. Not only did it annihilate matter, but it obliterated the very essence of life, what you call the spirit. This energy, the bioenergetic psyche, is indestructible by conventional means. It persists, holding the memory of life itself. The professor interjected hesitantly. You mean the energy that moves us, the planets, even the stars? Precisely, Leah said, her gaze piercing. Planets with life possess memory, a resonance of vitality. But this weapon, they called it the antimatter device, could destroy that essence. It was a molecular disintegrator, a force neutralizer, a magnetic destabilizer. It absorbed energy of every kind, rendering entire cities and forests to nothingness. The fall of Maldek. The room seemed colder now, as though the gravity of Leah's words had leached the warmth from the air. The professor's hand trembled as he poured himself a glass of water, but his eyes never left her face. On Maldek, Leah continued, her voice softening, this weapon's creation was met with horror. Intergalactic law prohibited such tools of annihilation, for they disrupted the delicate balance of life across the stars. Yet the terrestrials, your ancestors, defied these laws, driven by a reckless belief in their isolation at the galaxy's edge. They thought they were untouchable. The professor murmured bitterly. Leah nodded. And so the Maldekians intervened. At first, they sought peace, Their scientists traveled to Earth pleading for the deactivation of the weapon. But the terrestrials refused, burying their creation beneath a massive pyramid guarded day and night. War was inevitable. Her words conjured vivid images in the professor's mind: starships descending upon Atlantis, the skies ablaze with fire as cosmic powers clashed. The cataclysm. The war raged for nearly a year, Leah said, her voice now trembling. It was a conflict of equals, each side wielding unimaginable power. But when the terrestrials began to lose ground, they made the fateful decision to use the weapon. The professor's breath caught. They actually activated it? They aimed it at Maldek, disrupting its magnetic field and orbital stability. The planet, once vibrant and full of life, spiraled into chaos. It collided with nearby worlds, its fragments becoming the asteroid belt you know today. Yet the terrestrials paid a heavy price. The scientists of Maldek retaliated, targeting Atlantis itself. Leah paused, her luminous eyes clouded with sorrow. On that fatal night, a beam of unfathomable power split Atlantis in two. The continent sank beneath the waves, taking with it the secrets of the antimatter weapon. The Earth's magnetic poles shifted, and for centuries your world reeled from the catastrophe. The dormant threat? Silence enveloped the room as Leah finished her tale, save for the faint ticking of a clock on the mantel. The professor broke the stillness, his voice barely a whisper. And the weapon, it remains in the ocean? Yes, Leah replied solemnly. Beneath the sea, near what you call Bimini. Even now it stirs, its energy subtly altering your world. It disrupts compasses, communications, and the navigation of ships. Solar rays activate its dormant power, creating magnetic anomalies and molecular disintegrations. The professor stared at her, his disbelief battling with the weight of her conviction. After all these years, it's still that dangerous? More than you realize, she said. Many civilizations covet it, though only the most advanced can hope to deactivate it without catastrophic consequences. To disturb it now would risk annihilation on a scale your world cannot comprehend. He swallowed hard, the enormity of her words pressing down on him. Can you? Could you deactivate it, Leah? Her gaze softened, filled with both pity and resolve. We could, Professor, but in doing so, we would expose your planet to forces beyond your understanding. We value life too deeply to take such a risk. The professor slumped back in his chair, overwhelmed. Then what hope do we have? Leah's voice was gentle yet firm. Hope lies in wisdom. Your world must advance, not in weaponry but in understanding. Only then will you earn the trust of the greater civilizations who protect the fragile harmony of the cosmos, a silent legacy. As Leah departed, the professor sat alone, her words echoing in his mind. The knowledge of the antimatter weapon and its dormant threat weighed heavily on him. Somewhere beneath the endless waves lay the relic of humanity's hubris, a silent reminder of the cost of ambition untempered by wisdom. And so, the tale of Maldek and Atlantis became not just a story of destruction, but a cautionary beacon for those who dared to dream of wielding the forces of creation itself. The professor stood on the precipice of understanding, a space both exhilarating and terrifying. Leah, the enigmatic inhabitant of Inkstria, stood before him with an otherworldly grace, her voice calm yet charged with a deep urgency. The conversation between them, though spoken softly, felt monumental, as though each word was a seismic tremor in the fragile structure of his comprehension, a meeting of worlds. These other civilizations of which you speak, do you know their location? The professor asked, his voice betraying a mixture of scientific curiosity and growing dread. Effectively, Professor, Leah replied, her gaze steady, as though measuring the weight of the knowledge she was about to impart. The anti-energy emission is detectable by our sensors. Many cosmic civilizations know its location. You will know as well. For very soon, the scientists of your world will strive to reach it. Yet few, if any, truly comprehend what it is or represents, much less its origin. Her words hung in the air like a storm cloud, ominous and laden with meaning. The professor leaned forward, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the armrest of his chair. He did not interrupt her, though his mind raced with unspoken questions. Many ships that pass through this anti-magnetic field suffer alterations in their navigation systems, she continued, her tone unyielding. Accidents sometimes occur. These ships, by their very presence, stimulate the antimatter forces, exacerbating their potency, the weight of knowledge. The professor's heart quickened. Leah, is it really possible that American scientists have already detected this? Of course, Leah said with the slightest nod, as though affirming an inevitability. I have told you before that some of your scientists are concerned about what occurs in that zone. But listen carefully, Professor. Your destiny is slowly being altered. I did not say that you are chosen, but if you are fortunate enough to know this, you must not release the information recklessly. She paused, and the room seemed to grow colder, as though the very air responded to the gravity of her words. Your world, she continued, must understand what exists there. However, your society is not yet prepared. It is too volatile, too prone to violence. To wield such knowledge now would only hasten your destruction. Many minor races, rebellious and ambitious, would seize this weapon at any cost. The professor's breath hitched as she described his world with brutal clarity. Her words painted a picture of a planet teetering on the edge of self-destruction, a truth he could neither deny nor escape, a mirror to humanity. Today's generations on your planet, Leah said, her voice tinged with sorrow, are raised amidst violence. Your communication apparatus, so marvelous in potential, bombards them with images of war, instilling aggression without purpose. Parents fail to guide them, not out of malice but ignorance. These are the children who will inherit your world. Her words cut through him like a scalpel, dissecting the flaws of his society with clinical precision. She described a world where love was conditional, values were eroded, and peace was sought through war, a cycle of decay that seemed unbreakable. Your world's tendency toward belligerence, she said, renders it unworthy of such a weapon. Only those civilizations that survive and evolve, demonstrating respect for life and knowledge, earn their place in the galaxy. The professor swallowed hard, his mind grappling with the implications. No, Leah, he said finally, his voice trembling with conviction, I will not share this knowledge. If someone were to die because of my actions, my life would lose all meaning. My world is not ready for this power. Leah's expression softened, a flicker of understanding passing over her features. Perhaps that is the wisest choice, she said, her tone measured. But the time will come when your world faces decisions of unprecedented consequence. By then, it may be too late. A journey beneath the waves. Can you show me where this weapon lies? The professor asked, his curiosity undiminished despite his resolve. I will take you there, Leah said, her voice a solemn promise. Together, we will witness the Great Pyramid beneath the ocean's depths. It may appear innocuous, but within it lies a force capable of annihilating your entire planet. Her description conjured an image both awe-inspiring and terrifying, a relic of unimaginable power hidden in the watery abyss. She spoke of entire flocks of animals swallowed by the anti-energy field, of celestial bodies absorbed by clouds of antimatter. The professor's scientific mind reeled, yet he could not look away from the truth she unveiled. The burden of a legacy. As their conversation drew to a close, Leah's voice took on a gentler tone. Your duty, Professor, is to plant the seed of knowledge. Whether it bears fruit depends on the soil in which it is sown. Peace must take precedence if your world is to evolve beyond its current state of decay. Her final words lingered in his thoughts long after she left. He wrote them down in his diary, unable to trust the frailty of memory with such a profound revelation. He reflected on her warnings, the visions of a fragile Earth caught in the crosshairs of cosmic forces it could not comprehend. And though the professor resolved to keep her secrets, he knew that the knowledge she had shared was not a gift but a burden, one that would weigh on him for the rest of his life. The Extraterrestrial Photographed. From the Diary of Professor Hernandez, March 1979. The days after my conversations with Leah were unlike any I had ever experienced. It was as though a door had opened in my mind, revealing a universe vast and boundless, one that mocked my limited understanding. Her words lingered with me, echoing in the quiet moments when I was alone with my thoughts. I began to carry my camera everywhere. It became an obsession, a talisman against the skepticism I feared would one day confront me. I needed proof, not for others, but for myself. I needed something tangible to anchor the surreal reality of my encounters. It was on a quiet day in March of 1979, with the sun high above Tlatelolco, that I saw her again. The air was warm, yet I felt a shiver race down my spine when I spotted her unmistakable figure, bathed in a light that seemed to reject the shadows around her. She moved gracefully, each step measured and deliberate, her presence otherworldly yet serene. I raised my camera almost instinctively, the desire for proof overwhelming my sense of decorum. "Leah," I called out, my voice trembling slightly. "May I photograph you?" She turned to face me, her deep eyes not meeting mine directly, but focusing on my forehead. Her expression softened, and a subtle sadness seemed to pass over her features. "Why?" she asked, her voice delicate, almost musical. "Leah," I explained, swallowing my nervousness. "If perhaps someday I wish to share the message you've brought me, people will demand proof. They will want to see you, to believe that what I say is true." She tilted her head slightly, the gesture both curious and contemplative. "Who will ask for proof, Professor?" "The editors," I replied, fumbling for words. "The readers, the skeptics, anyone who hears what I've shared." Her smile was faint, enigmatic. "Professor, when I descend to your world, I do so suitably protected, not just for my safety, but for yours. I am surrounded by an anti-magnetic and anti-gravitational halo. Decades ago, this halo was visible to the naked eye, and many of my kind were mistaken for divine beings, but now we have refined our technology. Your camera, primitive as it is, cannot capture me. Even your car's battery is affected by my presence, as you've already seen. Do you truly believe your camera would fare better?" Despite her words, I couldn't suppress my determination. "Please, Leah, just one photograph. It doesn't need to be perfect." She hesitated, her gaze softening further. Then, with a slight shake of her head, she stepped back, a single stride that covered more ground than seemed possible. "It will not come out, Professor," she said gently, "and it is not because I deny you. My protective field will distort any image. It is for your safety as much as mine." I pressed the shutter anyway, capturing frame after frame, desperate for even the faintest proof. Leah watched me, her expression unreadable, before turning and walking further away. Her strides were fluid, almost gliding, and I could feel the futility of my actions even as I continued to press the shutter. When she stopped, she looked back over her shoulder. "Your world is not yet ready for what I bring, but Professor, hold on to what you believe, even if no one else does." Later that evening, I developed the film in the solitude of my home. My hands trembled as I spooled the negatives, my heart pounding with anticipation. Frame after frame emerged blank, nothing but empty exposures. But then, on the first photograph, a faint figure, a luminous anthropomorphic shape that seemed to glow with an ethereal light. It was larger than Leah herself, indistinct but undeniably present. My breath caught as I studied it. It was real. The remaining frames were barren, the rest of the film as lifeless as my skepticism should have been. But that single image was enough to unnerve and thrill me in equal measure. Leah had warned me, yet she had allowed this. A proof, not for the world, but for me, a gift to sustain my conviction. And yet, the doubts crept in. Was I deluding myself? Was this image truly her, or merely a trick of light and shadow? I placed the photograph in a portfolio, marking the date with trembling hands. The proof was there, faint and fragile, like the connection I felt to her and the truths she had revealed. But even as I stared at it, I knew no one would believe me. This was a secret I would carry alone, suspended between fear and intrigue. I was caught in a transformation I didn't fully understand, bound to something greater than myself, yet terrifying in its implications. The nights following were restless. The photograph was my anchor, yet it felt like a weight, pulling me deeper into questions I couldn't answer. Was I a messenger? A fool? Or merely a man, lost in the vastness of something far beyond his understanding? And still the luminous figure in the photograph remained, a fragment of truth in a world of uncertainty. An invitation to know Leah, November 1979. The professor's words stayed with me, echoing in my mind like an unanswered question. For months he had confided in me about his encounters with Leah, the extraterrestrial woman who had so thoroughly changed his life. As the director of a magazine devoted to exploring UFO phenomena, I had encountered countless stories, wild claims, outlandish theories, and more than my share of hoaxes. Yet there was something different about the professor's account. He sought no fame or material gain. His stories weren't the fevered fantasies of someone desperate for attention. They were measured, poignant, and filled with an undeniable sincerity. Sometimes, as he spoke of Leah, his voice would tremble, and I could see tears glistening in his eyes. His emotions were raw, unguarded. The depth of his experience struck a chord in me. Yet, even as I believed him, a part of me hesitated. How could I not? This was no ordinary tale. It was one of interstellar visitors, of telepathic communication, and of scientific insights far beyond our understanding. "I want you to meet her," he said one day, his voice quiet but firm. His words startled me. I wasn't sure if he truly meant it, or if he simply wanted to placate my persistent questions. "You want me to meet Leah?" "Yes," he replied. "I've asked her." She agreed. My heart raced at the thought. Leah had agreed? A part of me thrilled at the possibility, but another part, one I wasn't proud of, was filled with trepidation. "Where would this meeting take place?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'll take you," he assured me. "You don't need to worry about the details." But I did worry. The days that followed were filled with an uneasy anticipation. At night, as I lay in bed, I found myself staring out the window at the stars, their cold light stirring something primal within me. Was I ready for this? Did I truly want to meet her out of curiosity, or was I merely looking for proof to unmask the professor's story? By the time November arrived, my apprehension had grown into something far more tangible. I couldn't explain it, an undefined dread that gnawed at my resolve. What if meeting Leah changed me in ways I couldn't foresee? What if I wasn't strong enough to handle the encounter? The night before our scheduled meeting, I barely slept. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with scenarios both wondrous and terrifying. At one point, I got up and leaned out the window, gazing at the moon and the stars above. The sight filled me with a strange mix of awe and fear. My heart pounded in my chest, and I found myself questioning everything. When the professor called early the next morning to remind me of the appointment, I panicked. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice shaky. "I have too much work to do. I can't go." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then, in a calm but firm tone, he replied, "I asked Leah if you could come. She said, 'It is well, you may bring her, but I do not think she wants to come.'" His words sent a chill down my spine. Leah had known I would refuse. Had she foreseen my hesitation, or had she somehow influenced it? The questions swirled in my mind, but I had no answers. The professor's voice softened. "She understands, you know. Many people feel this fear. It's natural. It's why their kind remain hidden. Humanity isn't ready yet. The fear keeps us from forming the relationships they offer." He wasn't angry with me. That almost made it worse. For days afterward, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had missed something monumental. I replayed our conversation in my mind, imagining what might have happened if I had gone with him. Would I have stepped onto a spaceship? Would I have spoken with Leah face to face? When I confided in my elder brother, he scoffed at me, calling me a coward. He wasn't wrong. Even now, years later, I regret my decision. The memory of that missed opportunity lingers, haunting me in quiet moments. What would I have learned? How would it have changed me? These questions remain unanswered, an eternal mystery tethered to the stars. If you had been in my place, what would you have done? Would you have faced the unknown, or would you, like me, have let fear hold you back?